Ever imagine, like, what the world would even be like
Yeah.
without all the chips, the ones that make our smartphones and cars and even washing machines work?
Oh, yeah.
It'd be crazy different, right?
Totally.
Well, the company we're looking into today,
Yeah.
Synopsys, is like right at the center of making all that tech happen.
Yeah.
And we're going to figure out if it's a good idea to invest, for you.
Definitely. We're talking SNPS, the stock market ticker, right?
Right.
We got this super in-depth analyst report, breaks it all down.
Oh, nice.
What they do, where they stand in the industry, and the big question,
Yeah.
are their numbers and their management team as solid as the tech they're making? That's what we got to find out.
I like that.
Yeah.
So hit that notification button so you don't miss any of our deep dives into this investing world.
Absolutely.
Now let's jump into Synopsys. So they're not just making software.
Right.
They're creating the tools that actually design the brains of electronics, the ICs.
The integrated circuits.
Yeah, very specialized stuff.
And it's called Electronic Design Automation, EDA. And the report, it's like all about how that's the core of Synopsys.
Okay.
They're the blueprint makers providing the tools so everyone else can build those chips that, are in everything.
Gotcha. So they're like the architects of this whole chip world.
Exactly.
Pretty important job.
Essential.
The report mentions design IP too. What's that all about?
Okay, so think of design IP as like pre-made building blocks, but for chips.
Okay.
Let's say a company needs, I don't know, a memory controller, right, in their chip. Instead of starting from scratch, they can just get a license from Synopsys. Boom, pre-designed, verified.
So save a ton of time.
A ton of time and resources, yeah.
That's smart. It's like having a whole library of like ready-made chip components, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Super valuable in this fast-paced industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Where does Synopsys fit in the whole like chip making scene though? Are they a big deal or what?
Oh, they're major players.
Okay.
The analyst report puts them right at the top. Sharing that space with Cadence Design Systems and Siemens EDA.
Those are some big names.
Yeah, and these three, they basically run the industry.
That's gotta be good for business, right? Less competition.
Less competition, higher barriers to entry.
What's that mean?
The report makes it clear it's tough for new companies to even try to compete at that level.
Oh, I see.
Really solidifies Synopsys' spot.
Yeah, the stability's got to be attractive for investors, right?
For sure.
What about the future, though? Is there reason to think this success is going to keep going?
Lots of reasons to be optimistic. The report highlights how Synopsys is riding this wave of booming tech sectors.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
AI. Think about it. The rise of AI, the whole cloud computing expansion, and then the Internet of Things, it just keeps growing.
All needing more chips.
And not just more complex, more specialized chips.
And that's where Synopsys comes in.
Exactly. The more complex the chips, the more you need their tools.
Makes sense. It's not just that stuff, though, right?
Right. 5G rollout.
Oh, yeah.
And car electronics are getting so complex, especially with electric cars and self-driving cars coming up.
So they're in a perfect spot to, benefit from all these big tech trends.
Perfectly positioned.
But what makes them stand out? Why Synopsys and not the other big players?
Well, the report points to a few things. First, their rep for cutting-edge tech and constantly innovating. They're not just chilling on past successes.
Yeah.
They're pushing the limits of what's even possible in chip design.
So they got the brains. What about the brawn? Do they have the brand, the customers, all that?
Oh, yeah. In this industry, reliability is key.
Right.
Synopsys has this stellar reputation for quality, rock-solid dependability.
Makes sense.
And their customer list.
Yeah.
Intel, ARM, huge names.
Oh, wow.
Relying on their tool.
Does the report say anything about how strong those relationships are?
It says they're basically locked in. Switching to a competitor would be such a headache. It's just not likely.
So that's guaranteed income for Synopsys, right?
Yeah.
Recurring revenue. That's what investors like to see.
Exactly.
We're getting a pretty good picture of the company, and it's looking really good.
Yeah.
But what about the people in charge? What does the report say about the management team?
All right, so the CEO, Sassine Ghazi,
Okay.
he's got a really interesting story.
Wow.
He's been with Synopsys for 25 years.
Wow.
Worked his way up from chip design, then applications engineering, then business management.
He's seen it all.
Yeah, deep understanding of the company, the whole industry, really.
That's impressive. Anything else stand out?
One thing, his compensation, it's actually pretty modest compared to other CEOs at similar companies.
Huh. That is interesting. What's that mean?
Well, analysts, some of them, see it as a good sign.
How so?
It could mean he's more focused on the long game, the company's value over time, not just quick profits.
That's a good point.
It's something investors definitely want to look into more.
This deep dive is already giving us a lot of insights. And we're just getting started before we get into the nitty-gritty of Synopsys' finances.
The numbers.
I want to give a quick shout out to our YouTube channel. We break down all these financial topics, but in a way that's, easy to understand, even fun.
Defo.
So head over there, and while you're there, let us know in the comments what stocks you want us to cover in future episodes.
We love hearing from you guys.
And don't forget, we always put the links to all our sources in the episode description. Okay, back to Synopsys. How do their financials look?
Let's dive into those numbers.
The financials, it's like a company's report card. And Synopsys looks like they're getting straight ass.
They do. The report shows steady growth, good profit margins, and they're being responsible with debt, it seems like.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah, in 2024, their revenue jumped 15%.
Wow.
And they've been beating the industry average for earnings growth consistently.
That's a great track record.
It is.
What's the overall market sentiment like for Synopsys? Are analysts, bullish or bearish?
Bullish, overwhelmingly.
Oh, really? Most analysts rate Synopsys as a buy.
Interesting.
And their price target suggests the stock could climb even higher.
So the experts are on board. What's really catching my eye, though, is these strategic acquisitions Synopsys is making.
Oh, yeah?
They're trying to buy ANSYS. That's a giant in the engineering software world. What do you think about that?
It's smart. They're not just growing on their own. They're expanding their reach, getting new capabilities.
Yes.
This acquisition could open up new markets, new tech. It just makes their position even stronger.
Okay, now for all our listeners who are into Warren Buffett, his investing style, does Synopsys fit with his famous principles?
This is where it gets really interesting. So Buffett, right, he looks for companies with long-term prospects, businesses that are easy to understand, and strong financials backed by, capable and ethical management. And from this analyst report, it seems like Synopsys is checking those boxes.
Okay, let's break it down. Long-term prospects first. The semiconductor industry, it's just getting bigger and bigger. It's essential.
Right.
And Synopsys is providing the tools to fuel that growth. As tech keeps advancing, we're going to need more and more chips. Synopsys is in a great spot to benefit.
Right. It's like they're selling the picks and shovels in a gold rush, like you said.
Exactly.
Okay, next point. Easy to understand business.
They make tools that design the brains of electronics. Yeah, the actual process is complex, for sure.
Right.
But their business model, it's pretty straightforward, essential software and services. Can't get much clearer than that.
And for an industry that's, vital to the global economy.
Absolutely.
Okay, so strong position in a growing market, business model that makes sense. Now let's talk financials and management.
We touched on their financial health earlier, remember? Great revenue growth, good margins.
Yeah.
And their management team, Ghazi leading the way, seems like they really get the industry and are focused on the long term.
That's a good combo.
It is.
Synopsys seems to be doing a lot of things right so far. But we got to say it, always do your own research, before making any investment decisions.
Absolutely. This deep dive, it's a starting point. Got to dig deeper, look at different opinions.
Right.
Make sure any investment you make fits your goals, your risk tolerance.
Exactly. Before we wrap things up, I want to touch on risk.
Yeah.
Even the best companies face challenges.
Oh, for sure. In this case, Synopsys' success, it's tied to how well the semiconductor industry is doing.
So if that industry struggles, Synopsys struggles.
Pretty much.
What else should our listeners think about?
I'd say look into how reliant they are on that semiconductor industry.
Okay.
What if chip demand slows down? That's something to consider.
Right. Any other potential issues?
Regulatory stuff, could government policies change things up for them? And then there's the competition, especially with that ANSYS acquisition happening. How will that shake things up?
So many factors to consider.
Always got to think about the potential downsides.
That's great advice. Always do your homework, right?
Yeah, don't just take our word for it. Look at the data yourself.
Exactly. We've covered a lot today.
We have.
Synopsys, a leader in chip design, great track record, looking good for the future. But those risks are there.
Investing always has risks, but by understanding them and doing your research, you can make better decisions.
That's the key.
It is.
Okay, before we go, let's get back to that Warren Buffett analysis.
The cliffhanger.
Right. Remember, Buffett wants companies with long-term prospects, businesses that are easy to understand, strong financials with good management.
Yep. And so far, Synopsys seems to be hitting the mark.
But do they really align with Buffett's thinking? We'll answer that in part 3 of our deep dive. Back again for the deep dive, wrapping up our look at Synopsys. And the big question, does this company fit with Warren Buffett's investment style?
Based on what we saw in that analyst report, it's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's go back to those key principles he's all about. Remember, long-term prospects, easy to understand business, and strong financials with, a capable and ethical management team.
Right. Let's hit those one by one long-term prospects first.
The semiconductor industry, it's the backbone of, everything these days, and it's only getting more important as tech keeps growing. Synopsys is giving them the tools to power that growth, so their future is tied to a sector with huge, huge potential.
And they're not just along for the ride, right? They're shaping the industry with all the innovation, the acquisitions.
Exactly. They're proactive.
What about the second point? Easy to understand.
Chip design, yeah, that can get super complicated. But Synopsys' business, at its core, it's not that hard to get.
Right.
They make and license the tools that make chip design happen, period. That's a value proposition anyone can understand.
Like we were saying before, sell shovels in a gold rush.
There you go.
The demand for gold, that's like the demand for tech today.
Yeah.
And Synopsys has the shovels.
The essential tools.
Exactly. All right, last point. Financials and management, got to be strong.
The report gives them high marks there. Consistent revenue growth, healthy profit margins, and they're handling debt responsibly, from what we can see.
And their management team, with Ghazi at the helm, they seem to really know their stuff, and they're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, that's the vibe we're getting.
That whole thing about Ghazi's compensation being, relatively modest, that really stuck with me.
It's a good sign.
Shows he's not just chasing the quick payout.
He's invested in the company's success, which is a big part of Buffett's philosophy for sure.
So based on our deep dive, Synopsys seems to be checking a lot of the boxes for a solid investment.
A lot of them, but gotta say it again, no investment is risk-free, ever.
Right. Listeners should definitely do their own digging into Synopsys' reliance on the semiconductor industry, any regulatory issues that could pop up, and of course the competition.
This deep dive, it's a starting point, not the final word. Got to do your own research, think about everything, and make sure any investment fits your goals, your risk level, all that.
Couldn't agree more. You can find links to all the sources we used for this episode down in the episode description.
Definitely check those out.
This deep dive has been super interesting.
It has.
Hope you got a lot out of it.
We did.
Hit that notification button so you don't miss any of our future deep dives into the world of investing. We'll be back soon with more insights and analysis. Until then, happy investing.